game is just played. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm for you! Can't wait! Let's go!
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode. By the way, I got to do this. I'm sorry. I love y'all, but I can't do this. Is this the way it's got to be? It's the way it is. Things will never be the same. But what's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Sideline to Sideline. Now, if you're tuning in tonight to hear our Super Bowl preview, I apologize. We will not be talking anything Super Bowl. We will be recapping both championship games. We will talk about the head coaching hires that are around the NFL and all news related to the NFL. But next week, don't get it twisted, our Super Bowl special will be back, same as last year. Remember last year? Last year's Super Bowl special was pretty fun. And before I introduce my two colleagues, I will remind you of a rant that happened at the end of last year's Super Bowl special that I don't want to say went viral, but it had 10,000 views and a lot of comments. But a certain Kansas City beat reporter from ESPN hopped on our show and tried to big time our show, sitting in the back seat of a limousine, biting his nails, not paying attention. And I had to give him a little Mortal Kombat. But in the upper left corner, I got the Prince of Production for Sports Empire Network. He is the king, Kyle Edwards. How you feeling, Kyle?
I'm good. Look, it's that week before the Super Bowl and everything, but so much is still happening in the NFL. I mean, my team made their final coaching hire. A little iffy on it, but yeah, I'm excited to talk football with you guys.
We will talk Alex Van Pelt. Tonight. Alex Van Pelt was hired as the Patriots OC. That's a very interesting hire. We'll talk about the Philadelphia Eagles making a couple hires at their offensive and defensive coordinator position. But before we do that, we got upper right corner. We got one of your hosts from the N1 podcast, the stats genius. My guy is a Green Bay Packer cheesehead. He's not guarding the 2. He's guarding the 3. Mr. Guardy 3, how you feeling tonight, my friend?
Oh, I'm feeling great. Been busy doing research on our new defensive coordinator hire. I'm excited to talk more about him. It's going to be a good time.
So, first reactions to your defensive coordinator hire, because Kyle already told us he's a little iffy on the Van Pelt. What's your first reaction to Cheesehead Nation?
I'm not going to lie. My first reaction was who? But then I did some more research onto him, and I'm starting to like it. He seems to play a more aggressive style of defense, runs a 4-3, which is a nice change of pace from, us always playing conservative these past few years. I don't mind getting deep if we're playing aggressive, but when we played soft, we'd get, killed anyway. So I think this is going to be a nice, refreshing change of pace. So I'm looking forward to it.
I'll say this. When you hire a guy from I don't want to say small school. Boston College isn't a small school, but you're not hiring somebody from Alabama. You're not hiring somebody from Georgia. It's not Michigan or Ohio State. It has one of two things. It has bust written all over it. He's out of his league. He's not ready, or it has genius written all over it. Could you imagine how much of a jump it's got to be to go from the job he just held, right? The job he just held to being the defensive coordinator of the Packers. Boston College coach Jeff Hafley is now the DC of the Green Bay Packers. That's a huge jump. That don't even sound right coming out.
Although Hafley did come from Ohio State before getting the BC job.
Yeah,
so,
what is he? I mean, a defensive backs coach at Ohio State?
I think so. And if there's one thing BC did well, they have some pretty good defensive talent. They were pretty good, secondary guys and linebackers. So
what it tells me is the Green Bay Packers opened all doors looking for their next defensive coordinator. Yeah. You know what I mean? They opened all doors. All right. But before we get into the coordinators, the coaching hires, we had 2 football games to happen. We got to break those down. We're going to start the 3:00 game. We're going to start the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Kansas City Chiefs in Baltimore. I watched this football game fully expecting the Baltimore Ravens to win this game. I thought their defense would hold Kansas City under 20 points. I thought their offense would score enough to win this football game. I thought them being at home would allow them. I thought there's no way they're scoring less than 21 points. So I had a 24-11 Ravens going into the football game. And I'm going to be honest with you. I wasn't far off. Now, it might sound like I was far off, but that's okay. I'm going to break down why I wasn't far off. I want to start by saying this. Baltimore Ravens fans, do not be San Francisco 49ers fans. Do not call the Swifties or the NFL rigged or this, and that. Don't do that. Don't do that. You lost that football game because of stupid mistakes. Now, listen, do I think the game was called 100% one way or the other? No, I don't. I don't think it was I think that the Ravens didn't get the calls in that football game. And if that was a 3-point game, if that was a field goal game, if that game ended on a Harrison Butker walk-off field goal, maybe I would just say, okay, maybe that's the reason they lost the football game. But when I watched that game, I watched Zay Flowers get a taunting penalty. I watched him dive for the end zone and drop the ball and fumble it. I watched Lamar Jackson throw into triple coverage, throw an interception. And I watched the Baltimore Ravens score 10 points, 3 points up until the last drive of the game. I don't blame that on the officials. I blame that on Lamar Jackson, Todd Monken. And listen, got to give credit where credit's due. Steve Spagnuolo, defensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Great job.
Your thoughts on the game, Kyle? I know you were happy. I know you didn't want to see the Ravens win. Do you think that the Chiefs got a little bit of officiating love? How do you see that game going down?
I mean, look, this is a game where you feel like if Baltimore did what they normally do, they probably win, which is run the ball and play really good defensively. Defense, even despite a lot of their undisciplined penalties, they did their job. They held Kansas City to 17 points. If I told you in an AFC Championship game, you allow Kansas City to score 17, you're like, you probably won. Offensively, somebody's got to explain to me why you go into that game where, you know, the Chiefs don't have, was it Willie Gay, who's their Lamar spy, not play at all. They were playing nickel dime defense most of the game, and you drop back 48 times and have Lamar throw the ball outside the numbers on several occasions where if Godfrey was here would say, Lamar can't do that. And we saw that on full display this past weekend. 6 runs from running backs. And Gus Edwards had a run of like 15 yards as one of those, and they just went away from it. Then Lamar, who likes to drop back and just take off, all of a sudden didn't want to do that anymore. He was hesitant. You know, he had the strip fumble. It was just a weird like 180 on what the Ravens had done all season to get to this point. And then it was like they heard all this talk about, you know, Lamar not being a real MVP, and they're like, we're gonna show you. We're gonna show you why Lamar's the MVP. He's gonna throw it all over and it was like, no, that's not what you do. So, and I know you say you don't want the Ravens fans to turn to the Niners fans. They've kind of already have done that. They have blamed everybody from Taylor Swift to scripts to everything else for this loss other than Monken's game plan was trash. And Lamar is not that guy for the type of game plan they tried to use to win you that kind of game.
That might have been Kyle's signature moment right there. Kyle just gave you a soliloquy. I don't know if you know what that means. He broke it down.
I mean, I watched this game very intently. I mean, as John put it, I've been known as a Ravens hater all year, so I was like, this is their moment for them to prove to me that they're a winning organization and that Lamar is a big game winner. And both occurrences, they came up short.
I'll tell you who I don't blame it on. Roquan Smith. That man was a man possessed. He had
Kyle
16
Hamilton,
tackles.
yeah.
Kyle Hamilton had 11 tackles. They were all over the place. Kyle Hamilton
Yep.
and Roquan Smith were all over the place. Patrick Queen looked great. I don't blame it on them. Nope. Upper right corner, RD3. Did the Ravens get hosed in this one?
You know, I'm going to big WWE guy. I'm going to pull a quote from right there right now and make a little twist on it. The Ravens screwed the Ravens. It wasn't the refs, it was the Ravens. I read something interesting after the game. Gus Edwards had 3 early down carries all game. A staple of the Ravens all year. Run the ball early, get the run game going, and then play off the play action, and, then make life easier for Lamar. Like Kyle said, it's almost like they saw the criticism. They saw, well, Lamar isn't a real MVP, so they made the game more about showing that Lamar's a real MVP than throwing, them doing what they've done well all year, which is unfortunate. You had, at the end of the day, it's just self-inflicted wounds. It was a terrible game plan. Zay Flowers was simultaneously their best and worst offensive receiving weapon. But even then, you have Lamar making decisions like to throw into triple coverage, and the Ravens fans are like, it should have been pass interference. He should not be bailed out for making that throw. There's absolutely no way.
I said that right away in the chat.
So, yeah, overall, the Ravens just, they screwed themselves. That had nothing to do with the refs. Like, was it fairly called? It seemed like more calls were going the Chiefs' way, but it wasn't enough for me to go, yeah, that they screwed the Ravens. No, they did themselves in.
So the one thing, and I'm not saying I disagree with you guys. You guys are very intelligent with the way you guys are breaking this down. I think the Ravens should have ran the football more, but the Chiefs definitely did something to get them not to run the football. Steve Spagnuolo put everybody on that line of scrimmage to make Lamar beat them with the quick reads and the quick throws. Mm-hmm. Lamar didn't do that. And if you remember, it was a game plan that was put together on a Thursday Night Football, week 14, just a few years ago when the Miami Dolphins beat the Baltimore Ravens on Thursday Night Football by Brian Flores. It was called the nickel double A gap game. They were running mid blitz all game. If you're a Madden guy, you know what I'm talking about. They were running mid blitz that entire game. Line of scrimmage, they had 7 guys on that line of scrimmage, and they were coming. Now, it looked like the Ravens put that in their rearview mirror. What they were running against it for week after week after week, when teams would try to mimic that, they would run 2-3 tight end sets. They run stretch plays to the outside to get defenders caught up in the piles. I feel like that the Ravens went against. You ever see a game where you can get a guy out of their game plan by doing something? That's the Chiefs did. They got the Ravens out of their game plan by showing blitz and sending the house every time. Whereas you should make a team adjust to you, not you adjust to another team. If they're going to put 100 people on the line of scrimmage, add more blockers, go bigger. If I were the Ravens, I would have been more likely to watch them run goal line offense the entire game with 7 offensive linemen and a tight end than do what they did. I was not a fan of the way they handled that football game. And Zay Flowers could have had a much bigger game. He was getting man coverage the entire game, and he was getting open. Could have had a much bigger game. That fumble, that taunting penalty, they let Kansas City get in their head, and they shouldn't have did that. And I got to get, listen, if you want to give adjustments, I'll give adjustments credit, because Mike McDonald, new head coach of Seattle Seahawks, we're going to talk about shortly, made huge adjustments at that halftime and held the Chiefs to 60 yards in the second half? No points. I don't know. And I can't call it a hardball thing, because Harbaugh is one of the few coaches in the NFL that has an offensive and defensive coordinator that run those sides of the ball. He plays head coach. I got to give, Todd Monken.
Yeah.
Mark Jackson,
more of a Monken thing.
I got to give them more of the blame. Now let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, because they deserve credit. Andy Reid coached a masterful game. Andy Reid's a preparation coach. That's what he is. They went in that football game in the first 2 drives. They scored touchdowns. They put pressure on the Baltimore Ravens. You got to give him credit for that. Steve Spagnuolo held that Ravens team to 3 points up until 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Got to give credit.
Yeah.
Big time players make big time plays.
Yeah.
Because like you said, McDonald made adjustments for the Ravens defense while the offense didn't. Spagnuolo made, adjustments later in the game. So those sides of the ball did their job. But once again, for some reason, the offense was like, we're going to keep running our head into this brick wall, and eventually we feel like we're going to break through. Because look, McDonald had their defense hyped up. That's why I said some of the undiscipline was them being over aggressive, but I was okay with that because they were still keeping Kansas City out of the end zone most of the game. But yeah, I don't know, man. Ravens fans just really have to look at that offense and wonder why they just did this 180 flip in the biggest game of the season.
All right, I know both you guys didn't read the stats like I did because I'm gonna don't pull them up. I'm gonna play a game with you guys. Ready? You're gonna tell me Kansas City or Baltimore.
Okay.
All right. 255 passing yards to 230. Who had more passing yards? Kansas City or Baltimore?
I think that was Baltimore.
I think it was Baltimore.
Okay. 89 rushing yards to 81 rushing yards. Who had more rushing yards?
The Chiefs.
Yeah, I think it was. I'll guess Chiefs too.
Okay. You're both correct. 8 for 18 on third down, 3 for 11 on third down. Who was 8 for 18?
I feel like that has to be the Chiefs.
It's got to be the Chiefs, I feel like.
37 minutes time of possession to 22 minutes time of possession.
48 passes tells me that Lamar had 22 minutes. So I'm going to go Chiefs dominated time of possession.
But here's the big one. 3 turnovers to 0.
I'll get it done. Yeah, Chiefs won the turnover battle. Yeah.
Guys, if I read you all those stats back and forth, you'd be like, probably close game. Don't know who won. Ravens had more passing yards. Chiefs had more rushing yards. Chiefs had a better third down efficiency. Ravens had more total yards. 3 turnovers to 0. That was where the game was won. Lamar fumble, Zay Flowers fumble, Lamar interception. You can point to those 3 games, and you can know exactly what the issue was.
Yeah, I'll give some credit to Patrick Mahomes too with those rushing stats because it sounds easy enough, but a lot of elite quarterbacks aren't willing to really rely on their backs and let them take over. We've seen it with Aaron Rodgers always checking out of run plays. Josh Allen always wants to play hero ball. We've seen that quite often. So credit Patrick Mahomes taking a step back and be like, all right, Pachenko, go to work and, do your damage. So
39 passing attempts, 32 rushing attempts for the Chiefs. 37 passing attempts, 16 rushing attempts for the Ravens. You want to talk about a game that was blown by coaching, though? We got to talk about the next game. Detroit Lions headed into San Francisco and had their foots on the throats. Boots to asses in the first half. Detroit started that game on fire. They were rolling. Touchdown. I thought San Fran had the best defense in football. Someone must have lied to me. Detroit came out in that game and they went touchdown. How did that go? How did that happen? Touchdown, punch, touchdown, field goal. That was the first half. But I will say this. You start the second, tail of 2 halves, right? That field goal at the end of the first half and listen, guys, I'm not trying to, nothing against Dan Campbell. But, like, I feel like he chose the wrong times to be aggressive in this football game.
Yeah.
Just look at the box score. You go to first half, right? 7-0, 14-0, 14-7, 21-7, 24-7. 4th and goal from the 2-yard line. They choose to punt the ball. They kick a field goal. They went up 24-7 at the half. You start the second half, you hold the 49ers to a field goal. You go down, you get into 49ers territory. It's 24-10. You have 4th and 2 at San Francisco's 28-yard line, and you chose to go for it. When you could have 3 possessions, you eliminate their entire first drive. And they went for it and didn't get it. That was the momentum change, guys. 49ers touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs fumble. 49ers touchdown. It's 24-24. Changed the game. Now, before I go to you, Kyle, before I go to you, Gardy 3, they had another opportunity. Get back in this football game. They're down 27-24. They put together a drive. They get in the 49ers territory again. 4th and 3. They threw a deep pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown instead of tying the football game with a 47-yard field goal. And then what happened? Touchdown. Down 10 points. Game over. Detroit scores a late touchdown. Can't recover the onside kick. Game is over. Selective aggressiveness. I'll tell you what. Kick the field goal. Go down 7. Let's just say everything else plays out the way it plays out. San Fran goes down, scores touchdown. They're up 7. You want to be aggressive. Go down, score that touchdown, and go for 2. Go for the win. No one faults you. I'm okay with that aggression. I'm not okay with if you're down 3 points and you have a 47-yard field goal on a 4th and 3 and you make the decision to go for it. Kyle, your thoughts on the game?
Look, in the first half, I feel like most of America was probably feeling really good for Detroit, feeling good for the Lions, thinking like this magical run was going to continue all the way to Vegas. And then, like you said, Dan Campbell maybe got caught up way too much in the moment, so he decided to get more aggressive, thinking, we have to go for the kill shot type of mentality. Whereas it's all good and well to be aggressive, but you have to read how the game is flowing. Like, going up by 3 scores is a big deal. Yes, you have to kick a field goal to do it. I heard a lot of people saying, like, their field goal kicker hasn't been all that good or whatever, but it's like, I don't want to hear that because, like you said, at the end of the first half, you tried the long field goal with him, and he made it. So you have to kind of put some confidence into your kicker to make a 40-something yard kick or whatever like that. Like, he's a professional field goal kicker. He should be able to make that. And it's just like once the momentum started slipping from Detroit, they had nothing. They couldn't do anything about it because that kind of went with Purdy turning up his level because Purdy had a rough first half, but then he started doing what Lamar wouldn't do, use his legs a little bit more, which helped him extend drives out, got him more involved in the game. And then we just saw like the Niners team that we had seen a lot of this season take over and finish the comeback. And I thought Dan Campbell's comments after the game were interesting as well, because he's saying like, this might have been our best opportunity. Which if that's what he thought, then he has to kind of look at himself as to why that opportunity slipped through their fingers. It was his decisions to go for it when they shouldn't have. And then, poor Josh Reynolds as well, because a lot of people are looking at him with the 2 drops. I get it. But some of those situations you probably shouldn't have put him in with Jared Goff when you could have just taken points, and we probably have a different story right now of the Lions being in the Super Bowl.
We're not going to talk about. We're not going to blame Josh Reynolds for this. We're not, because the one ball was
Yeah,
not.
no, I'm not either. I'm just saying, like, a lot of people are looking at Josh Reynolds like, oh, those 2 drops were killer. Yes, they were killer.
Yeah, I don't even think one was a drop.
Oh, the one when he laid out. Yeah, that'd have been a tough catch.
Very tough catch. I don't think it was well thrown.
Yeah.
Cardi 3, what's your thoughts on the game?
Yeah,
I know you might be a Detroit hater because you're a Packers fan, but you don't like the 49ers either.
I would have rather seen Detroit win, honestly.
See,
But
look at that. Look at that. We're mending fences here on sideline to sideline.
Credit to credit to the 49ers, but Dan Campbell, yeah, he just made poor choices when to go throughout the game. And the one that a lot of people don't talk about is he could have given them one more chance to get the ball back. A minute 5, you have the ball near the end zone. Anthony Ferkshire, gets out of bounds at like the 2-yard line. At that point, I'd kick a field goal, take the points, make it a 1-score game, save your timeouts. But he goes for it. He tries to run it, gets stuffed, is forced to use a timeout, and now you're relying on an outside kick, which has like a 2% chance to succeed. So overall, it was just a game of coaching. Take them right out of the game, and it right up until the very end there. So it's unfortunate. These Lions, they played their heart out. They had a great season, but they lived by Dan Campbell, and Sunday they died by Dan Campbell.
So just to be clear, they had a 1st and goal at the 2nd and goal at the 49ers 1-yard line. That's what you're talking about. A minute 10 left, 2nd and goal from the 1-yard line. Ferkshire gets out of bounds at the 1, and they throw an incomplete pass, and then they run David Montgomery on a play in which they ran a crackback block from an undersized wide receiver who got blown up, and Montgomery lost 2 yards. I blame that on Ben Johnson. I don't blame that on Dan Campbell. What are we doing there? Why are you running the football there? And even if you don't get it, you have to have a second play ready.
That's fair. Just overall, just a failure down there, and you can't run plays where you're going to have to waste a timeout, because that just almost completely takes you out of the game. And unfortunately, that's just kind of what ended up happening right at the end.
All right, well, just like we did in the Baltimore Ravens Chiefs game, it's time to give Kyle Shanahan, Brock Purdy, and this 49ers team credit. Down 24-7 at the half, the adjustments that were made, field goal, stop, touchdown, stop, fumble recovery, which was touchdown, stop, field goal, stop. Guys, I'm getting old here. Let me read it to you again. After the half, down 24-7, they kicked a field goal. They caused a turnover. They scored a touchdown. They caused a turnover. They scored a touchdown. They got a stop. They kicked a field goal. They caused a turnover. They scored a touchdown. The game was over. Give credit to where credit is due. Kyle Shanahan, before last week, was 0-30 when his team was trailing in the game in the 4th quarter. He is now 2-30. And for all the people, listen, I don't think Brock Purdy's top 5 quarterback in football. But for all the people that just will not give Brock Purdy any credit, can't win when he's coming from behind. Did it 2 straight weeks. Got to give them credit. Credit where credit is due. Credit where credit is due. 49ers won the football game. Do I like the 49ers? Hell no. Hate Deebo Samuel. Not a Kyle Shanahan guy. They talk a lot. But credit where credit is due. That second half, they did not. You got punched in the mouth and you responded. They responded. That's what you're supposed to do. Give credit. Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, a lot of those guys made some big plays down the stretch. Just an opinion. I will ask you guys the question of both games. I'll start with Baltimore, Kansas City. Did Kansas City win the game, or did Baltimore lose it? Kyle.
No, Kansas City won it. I would just say Baltimore came up small in the moment, but look, Travis Kelce, 11 targets, 11 catches. He showed up. He did what a number one, option should do. Play big. We killed Stephon Diggs with Buffalo. Travis Kelce did the opposite. So I definitely get that to Kansas City, especially with Spagnuolo and what he did defensively. Yeah.
Guardy 3.
Yeah, I would say they won it when the pressure was on them. They stepped up. They all stepped up big time, and the Ravens shot themselves in the foot, sure, but Kansas City was ready to pounce and take advantage. So credit to Kansas City. They definitely won that one.
I wasn't expecting that. I agree. KC won it. I'm going to ask the same question. Did the San Francisco 49ers win it, or did the Detroit Lions lose it? Let me go first on this one because I'm going to spin this for y'all. I think the Detroit Lions lost it. I think they lost it. Let me explain what I mean. What do you look at when a team loses the football game? I look at a team that was up 17 points, that left 6 points on the board, that ran the ball on 2nd and goal from the 1 yard line for -2 yards, blowing timeouts in the wrong spot. Denny Green is rolling over and saying, we knew they were who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook. I think Detroit blew it. Lost it. Argue with me. Someone. Mo, hop on in. I know you're a 49ers guy. By the way, I think the 49ers, you know what? I'm going to get in the Super Bowl next week. Can't do it.
I would say the Niners won it because even being down like that, Purdy and those guys on offense had to make the plays to make the comeback happen. And looking at how Purdy's first half went, I feel like you have to give them the credit for it. Look, Detroit's inexperience showed in the second half. That's fine. And I can say because of where they've been in this new group, maybe it's a little bit expected. But the Niners went into that game with all the pressure to win it because they were seen as the better team and what they did last year. So I will give the Niners the credit for winning it and completing the comeback. And Brock Purdy as well, because I'm with you. A lot of the Brock Purdy naysayers keep kind of with new factors to not give him any credit. I feel like you look at that game, he did everything he had to do to get them the win.
I will say this. San Francisco won that game at home. Baltimore lost their game at home. Yeah. I think it's just different. I really believe Detroit blew this game. Party 3. Split the tie for us. Break the tie.
Yeah, to me, this one's easy. Detroit lost this one. They had every opportunity in the book. They jumped up 24-7. They just simply start taking the field goals when they had it. This is a completely different game, but they made all the wrong choices at the wrong time. They were too aggressive when they shouldn't be, and when they should have been, they weren't. So overall, credit to Kansas City to San Francisco for taking advantage of all the mistakes, but I think this game is absolutely one that Detroit lost.
Mo says, I agree, Gene Walzak. We're about to get number 6. Now, hold on. I'm not going to give you my Super Bowl prediction or my preview, but I will say this. I wouldn't be that confident with Kyle Shanahan. I wouldn't be. Do y'all remember the last time the 49ers played the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl? Because I do. I remember a 10-10 football game. 49ers getting the ball at their own 37 yard. Actually, you know what? I don't even want to lie about this anymore. Chiefs, we're going to get it right now. Because I'm going to give you the exact situation. I want to read it to you. 2019 Super Bowl, 31-20 was the final score. I need the box score. I got you right here. I'm going to read it to you. Step by step. Day by day. This is absurd. When you hear this, you're going to laugh. You ready? The 49ers get the ball back with a minute left in the first half in a 10-10 game. Raheem Mostert, 3-yard run. They let the clock run down. Raheem Mostert, 2-yard run. The Chiefs called a timeout. Jimmy Garoppolo, 20-yard pass to Jeff Wilson. San Fran calls a timeout with 14 seconds left at the 49ers' 45-yard line. Garoppolo throws a 42-yard pass to George Kittle. It gets called back by OPI, and Garoppolo kneels. They come out in the second half, field goal, interception, touchdown, 20-10. They throw another pick. 49ers have the ball again. Up 20-10 with the football. Punt. Kansas City touchdown. Punt. Kansas City touchdown. Turnover. Kansas City touchdown. Interception. Guys, Kyle Shanahan has officially lost 2 Super Bowls by himself. I think 49ers are a better football team. We'll preview the game next week. We'll break it down next week. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't be that confident if Kyle Shanahan was my head coach. It's like being confident with Lamar Jackson as your quarterback. He's good, but will he win you the big one? Guys, if you're Falcons fans, close your ears. You don't want to hear this. 28-3, fine. Patriots came back. But here's what I want to point at, right? I want to pull that box score up for you. I want to read something to you because I feel like this is really important. Okay? This is really important. You remember the Super Bowl, Kyle?
I do. Yes.
2017, February 5th. But I want to read something to you that's very, very important. It's 28-20 Atlanta. They have the football. This is insane. Matt Ryan completes a 27-yard pass to Julio Jones down to New England's 22-yard line.
Yeah.
They run the ball to Devontae Freeman for -1 yard. They run the clock down to 3 minutes and change. Matt Ryan was then sacked for -12 yards to the Patriots' 35. You had a chip shot field goal. Matt Ryan passed to Mohamed Sanu that got called back for holding. 3rd and 33 from the New England 45-yard line. Another incomplete pass with 3 minutes and change left. Punt. If they could have kneeled the ball 3 times after Julio caught that ball, kicked the field goal, went up 10 points, and the game was over. Am I lying?
I remember watching that.
No, you have to know the situation.
I remember watching it when Julio made that crazy catch on the sideline. I was like, okay, clearly
over.
We're not supposed to. Yeah, I thought it was over at that point.
It's over. Kneel the ball 3 times.
I mean, Arthur Blank was already on the sideline, ready to party. And I was just like, oh, Atlanta's really going to do this. And then, that's another game where you knew when that game went to overtime, please. You knew Atlanta wasn't going to win in overtime, please.
No.
Not a chance.
And Matt Bryant was as good as automatic that year.
Yeah, he was a good kicker that, yeah.
I was so floored. They punted the ball with 2 minutes and 26 seconds.
I was shocked they were even starting to drop back to pass, even if you run it 3 times with Freeman just to avoid losing big yardage. The only thing you can't do is take sacks and penalties and get yourself out of field goal range, and that's exactly what they did.
There are no do-overs, but I like Purdy better than Jimmy G, and C-Mac is a different dude. I agree with that. We'll talk about it next week. Mo, by the way, Mo, I'm asking you right now, officially, right now in the chat, hop on the show next week. We're doing a Super Bowl preview. I want a 49ers fan. I'm going to try to get Chase in here. to get a Chiefs fan. Mo, the invitation is here. We are doing a Super Bowl preview. 1 week extravaganza only. Can I get you? Please. I said, please. My guy said he's in. We got Big Mo.
All right.
All right, guys. We got 20 minutes left, and I'm not. Listen, told you next week's the preview. We're going to talk about some around the NFL news because this news is big. A lot of big news to happen. Mike Macdonald, new head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. Your thoughts, gentlemen. They went from the oldest coach in the NFL to the youngest coach in the NFL within 2 weeks. Yep. Mike Macdonald, ladies and gentlemen. Is he a good hire? Is he a bad hire? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Your thoughts, Kyle.
I am all for it. You know, Brett put up the TikTok video. We talked about this on the Big Three, and we both said, if you want to go defensive with your head coach, why pick Dan Quinn when Mike Macdonald's right there? And you saw the job he did with Baltimore's defense. I love the hire. I'm all about them picking Macdonald for their head coach. I think it's a great hire.
Guardy 3.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I thought it was a phenomenal hire. I think it's much better than hiring a retread head coach like Dan Quinn. Overall, some fresh blood. And he did a lot of great work, it seems, in Baltimore. And Seahawks seemed like they wanted somebody defensive-minded, and who better this year than Macdonald? He helped coordinate that Ravens defense to make them the best we've seen since, Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. So I really like it.
Shally said something last night on Wire to Wire, and I want to echo it. Mike Macdonald reminds me of Pete Carroll 30 years ago. Because Mike Macdonald was at Michigan. He was then he was at Baltimore. He's excited. He runs up and down the sideline. He's a player's coach. His players love him. But I want to point something out to you. 2 years ago, when Roquan Smith was the starting middle linebacker for the Chicago Bears, did you have him ranked in your top 5? Most teams in the league did not have him as a top 5 linebacker in football. I had him number 4. Did you have him top 5? Did you have him ahead of Shaq Leonard, Fred Warner? Did you have him ahead of Bobby Wagner? Did you have him ahead of any of those guys 3 years ago? 2 years ago?
I thought he was better than Shaq Leonard, but I also saw him twice a year. I kind of saw up close how good he was. So I had him close in top 5.
I thought he was one of the best linebackers in football on a bad team. He got traded to Baltimore, and he's the best linebacker in football. I think he's better than Fred Warner. I think Fred Warner's second. I think Roquan's 1. That's where I stand. And that's nothing against Fred Warner. I think Fred Warner's amazing. Kyle Hamilton, pick number 15. 14 teams passed on him. I had him as my number 1 guy on my board. Number 1 guy on my board. Now, my number 2 guy was Jordan Davis, and my number 3 guy was Nakobe Dean. So I don't want to bring up that draft because I was wrong about it so far. And that's okay. But I had my number 1 guy off the board was Kyle Hamilton. Is there a better safety in football right now than Kyle Hamilton? Maybe Minka? Maybe Justin Simmons? Maybe Derwin James? I'll take Kyle Hamilton over any of them. The way I look at a young coach is how he develops his star players. I'm going to make a prediction on the show right now. At the end of next year, Devin Witherspoon will be an all-pro corner. Watch what he does with young talent. Devin Witherspoon will be the best corner in football. I just said it. I had a sauce. I said it. Devin Witherspoon will be the best cornerback in football. Just saying.
I can see that.
And I think that Mike Macdonald's a good hire. And I'm not a fan of going on the defensive side of the ball for your head coach. I'm not, because offensive coordinators get picked off more than anything in the NFL. So, I want an offensive head coach so I don't have to keep worrying about replenishing my offensive coordinator role because it doesn't matter to me. But if you're going to go defensive, go 36-year-old defensive. I like it. I like the hire. Now, I got a little bit of smack to talk to the Washington Commanders.
Yeah.
The Commanders have hired Dan Quinn as their head coach. Guys, I don't want to be this guy. All season, I was happy. I'm not here complaining this week. Gerard Mayo, Antonio Pierce, Raheem Morris. I love that the African-American coach was hired across the NFL, as they should have been.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like retread white coaches. I don't like it. Maybe that's racist on my end. Maybe it is. I don't like when you take a coach that's under 500. I think it's like 43 and 42 as a head coach, a retread white coach. Why is there? Let me ask you a question and try to understand it, right? You have Eric Bieniemy in-house. You have so many young coordinators that Brian Flores' resume as a head coach. But we're hiring a retread head coach like Dan Quinn. I am so happy that the Commanders made this hire. Because all it means to me is that the Commanders are going to stink for another 5 years. Because you know what they're going to do, Brett? Let me help you out. Who has the first pick?
Bears.
Who has the second pick?
Is that the Commanders?
Commanders. What are they going to do with that second pick?
Draft Drake May, I'd imagine.
They're going to draft a quarterback. And when they draft a quarterback, you're going to marry a quarterback with Dan Quinn. Thank you. You know where Dan Quinn belongs? Dan Quinn belongs, if he wants to be a head coach, of Justin Herbert, of Trevor Lawrence, of Patrick Mahomes. Give him an established offensive quarterback. You're going to draft a friggin' rookie quarterback and marry him with a defensive-minded head coach. Let's ask Mark Sanchez how that worked out. Hate the hire. As much as I like the hire for Seattle, I hate it for Washington. Your thoughts, Guardy 3?
Yeah, I hate it too. I just hate retread coaches that have already failed multiple times. Like, we've seen Dan Quinn. He's not a good head coach. He's perfectly fine coordinator. He was fine all year until his, meltdown against Green Bay, but he's a terrible head coach. So wasn't even 500 as a head coach, so it's mind-boggling how there's so many great options now. Just pick an offensive coordinator. There's plenty of them. There's coaches down at the college level. It just feels like there's so many options, and yet here we are. Here's Dan Quinn again. Oh, boy, that's a great hire. Ask the late 2010 Falcons how great that is. So overall, I thought this was terrible.
Yeah.
Kyle.
I agree. I hated when they made it seem like Dan Quinn was the official guy for Seattle. I thought that was just dumb. Why do it there? Now Washington wants to come out and say they tried everybody else, nobody wanted the job, and Dan Quinn was the last guy standing. Fine, I won't kill them for that. But you can't tell me that if you want to go retread, like you said, Flores has been a coach before, just did that job he did in Minnesota as a defensive coordinator. You could have went with him. I know
Mike
Steven's
Vrabel.
in the chat.
I've been out with Mike Vrabel.
Mike Vrabel's been sitting out there. We haven't heard anything about him getting an interview. And I know a lot of people thought maybe Belichick would be in play in Washington. But even if you went with Belichick, I could be like, at least if you're going to go with somebody who's defensive-minded, Belichick is a great defensive coach. And they went with Dan Quinn, I guess, off of the job he did in Dallas. But the last time we saw Dallas's defense wasn't that great. And on top of that, Dan Quinn's job in Atlanta wasn't great either. So what is Washington hoping?
Outside the MVP year with Kyle Shanahan and Matt Ryan having that MVP year with Kyle Shanahan as his OC, you look at Dan Quinn's career in Atlanta and you tell me how that went.
Yeah, wasn't that great. Wasn't anything to celebrate. So, I mean, if Washington just did this because, well, Dan Quinn was in Dallas, we're in the division, we took him from Dallas, so it's a win for us. If that's their thinking, more power to them. I'm not expecting it to work out in Washington. And good luck to whatever young quarterback they draft.
And did you guys hear that the leading candidate to replace Dan Quinn as defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys is none other than Riverboat Ron?
Yes.
Like, this is amazing. As an Eagles fan, I am elated. By the way, breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. The Antonio Pierce has got an ex-head coach as his new offensive coordinator, as the Raiders are expected to sign Cliff Kingsbury to be their offensive coordinator. What's your first reactions to that?
I mean, I'm fine with it.
It's actually a perfect home for him. I'm going to be honest with you. It's a perfect home for Cliff because the Raiders are going to replace their quarterback, and you're going to marry the OC that's not going to get a head coaching job for a long time to the quarterback. And you're getting Antonio Pierce, who's an inexperienced head coach who wasn't really like in a head coaching search realm until the job he did taking over for McDaniels. You're getting him a guy that was a head coach for 4 or 5 years. You have one in the building to lean on for experience. I like that. I actually thought it was a good hire. Kyle, your thoughts?
No, I'm fine with Kingsbury as an OC. It works for me. And I think they also said like Marvin Lewis might be the associate head coach in Vegas. So I guess they're just bringing all kinds of experience.
Yeah, I like
Antonio Pierce, which makes perfect sense. I mean, look, Marvin Lewis was a guy who maybe was in Cincinnati a little too long for his record, but he was a guy that, if you look at him, he wasn't a terrible coach. So if that's who Antonio Pierce is going to have to maybe lean on and get some experience from, love it with Kingsbury. So they're setting up Antonio Pierce to do well, which is what they should do. So I have no problem with either of those hires.
Talk about a couple other Philadelphia Eagles. They got an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. Vic Fangio, he's home, the place he wanted to be all along. He's a local Pennsylvania guy, wanted to be in Philadelphia. He's the new Philadelphia defensive coordinator. A lot of talk out of Miami about him not being a guy that he was not very well liked. The players didn't like how hard he pushed them. He was a mean cuss. Listen, that's what Philadelphia needs. I don't really care how mean he was. I don't care how hard he made them work because the Philadelphia Eagles culture looked like a bunch of softies. So give me some Vic Fangio to toughen up that defense. Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator. They also hired Kellen Moore to be their offensive coordinator. Do you like both? Do you like one? Do you like neither? Cardi 3, I'll start with you.
Yeah, personally, I like both. I like Vic Fangio. And one thing he's going to make his guys, he's going to toughen them up. Most importantly, with getting tougher, I think he's going to really put an emphasis on tackling, which we saw was an issue at the end of the year. So I think it's a great hire. And say what you will about Kellen Moore, but he did a perfectly fine job as, the OC, in Dallas, and then he went to the Chargers. He was fine there. Like, he's always had good offenses. So overall, I kind of like both of them, honestly.
I think it gives them both. I think both of them gives them more experience in the room. And I think it gives them guys that have made it work on both sides of the football. Sirianni working with Kellen Moore, I think that offense will be fine. Kellen Moore has experience working with a mobile quarterback in Dak Prescott. Now he has got Jalen Hurts. Kyle, your thoughts? Which coordinator do you like better? Do you like either? Do you like both? Do you like neither?
No, I like both because I can see the direction that they're going with both hires. Because like you said, Kellen Moore's dealt with Dak, mobile quarterback, so now you give him Hurts. And then defense, look, after the way that they bowed out of the playoffs with their tackling and defensive just looking like they didn't know what they were doing, yeah, bring in a guy who's known as being a little bit tough on guys because even if the players don't like it, tough. You no longer get benefit of the doubt after the way you lost to Tampa Bay. You brought this on yourselves, and this is what the team should do. So I have no problem with either one.
I like both hires. Let's talk about the New England Patriots. New England Patriots hired Alex Van Pelt to be their new offensive coordinator. Kyle, I need your first thoughts on this. I am not a fan of this hire at all. But I would love to hear your thoughts. I respect your opinion. I'm sure you've been studying it all day.
Yeah, look, I guess it's kind of something where I thought, same way with like Antonio Pierce, you get him a veteran on one side of the ball because Mayo's the defensive guy. I figured they might go with a little bit more experienced offensive coordinator. Van Pelt, I mean, he used to play in the league. He was a quarterback. He's been around the Browns and all this kind of stuff. So at first I was like, I don't know. Then it's like he worked under an offensive coach, so he probably didn't call a lot of plays, but he was probably in the meetings with him and learn fundamentals and all that. So I'm hoping he brings something to the table. That's my whole thing has been. Offensively, I just want kind of a different type of philosophy. Because a lot of people talking about, Josh McDaniels to go back there. And I was like, I don't really want to see McDaniels as OC because it'd just be more of the same. And I just think they need a shakeup. So if he's going to come in and bring, tough running, because that's what they did in Cleveland when they had Nick Chubb. I mean, the Patriots don't have Nick Chubb. But
he's a quarterback's coach at heart. Brett should know all about
it. Well, and so with that point, if they're going to go with a young quarterback at number 3, you might as well get him a guy who can coach quarterbacks. Because whoever it is going to need some coaching coming out of college to get adjusted to the NFL. So it's not a name I thought of. So I'm in wait and see with him to kind of get to learn more about him. I don't know. Right now, I'm probably 50-50 on it. Only because, like I said, it was not a name I was thinking of when they were looking for OCs.
Yeah, but it seems as if Van Pelt was forced on Mayo, that Mayo didn't make this hire. Elliot Wolf, the director of scouting, used to work with Van Pelt in Green Bay.
Yeah, in Green Bay.
It seems as if he was forced on. Guardy 3, what are your thoughts on Van Pelt as used to be a quarterback's coach over in Green Bay? And then give us your thoughts on the new DC of the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, so I'll make it quick. Alex Van Pelt, it's interesting. Aaron Rodgers actually had some of his best years, working with Van Pelt. So I think if you're going to get a quarterback early, I think he's actually a really good choice for that. So we'll wait and see. You never really I don't remember seeing him much as an offensive coordinator, so that will be interesting. The DC of the Packers, I like it. I think he's going to come in, play a more physical style of football. He's going to be more aggressive. Means we're going to give up more big plays, but you know what? I will take that risk over, playing it safe and giving up big plays anyway. We're taking a big risk. It's either Matt LaFleur is going to look like the smartest guy on earth, or he's going to look like the dumbest guy on earth at the end of the year. But I think this was a worthwhile risk, and I think it's going to be a good one. I think this one will pan out.
I think Matt LaFleur has earned the right to take a risk. After taking that team to the playoffs this year when people didn't expect them to go and putting the 49ers on the brink of elimination, I think Matt LaFleur has earned the right to take a risk. Guys, we only have 20 seconds left. I do want to invite you guys all to join us for our Super Bowl preview. We'll be going over prop bets. We'll have guests. Mo is already confirmed. That's 4. Godfrey back. That's 5. We want 6, 7, 8 guys. Doesn't matter. Any final comments? You got 3 seconds each.
Go Pack, go.
Kyle?
I'll just say for Steven, I would love to see Vrabel as an associate head coach.
All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to Sideline to Sideline. I'm the NFL Genius Gene Walzek. That's Kyle, Prince Production, and Guardy 3. We are signing out.